AITA for kicking my pregnant niece and her new husband out of my house? That sounds awful, but hear me out. My big sister and I built a house with our income. It's designed so we have separate living arrangements and such, but we get to live next to each other without bothering the other. So it's like two different apartments with a door that connects them. Well, a couple of years ago I moved to another city, and my side of the house was left unoccupied. My sister's daughter, my niece, called me and asked for permission to move there while she was attending college. I didn't see an issue and told her she could. She didn't pay rent, but made sure to keep the place nice and tidy. This arrangement lasted for about 4 years. A few weeks ago she announced to the family that she was pregnant and had married her boyfriend. I was a bit shocked by the news. She was fresh out of college and she had barely mentioned her boyfriend. So I'm guessing the baby was unexpected and they decided to get married before having it. But what shocked me the most was going back home to visit and find out that her new husband, who I was meeting for the first time, is comfortably living in my house, and they're already turning one of my rooms into a nursery. I must admit that I got upset and had an argument with my niece. She had never discussed with me the possibility of extending her stay in my home, much less the fact that she wanted to live with her husband in my house. It wouldn't have been so upsetting to me if she hadn't altered one of the rooms already. My sister, her mom, is on her side and calling me selfish for asking them to move out. And she says that since she's the eldest she has the right to say who can or cannot inhabit the house. I reminded her that I paid for my half of the place, but she's just not having it. This made me feel even angrier. So I just told my niece that she had 2 months to find a new place and it was my final decision. After I cooled down I realized that I could have asked my niece to pay rent and call it a day. But I feel like she took advantage of my kindness and completely disrespected me and my house by sneaking her husband in and then changing a room in the house. She isn't even sorry. Her argument pretty much mirrors her mother's. Plus, since I'm not living in my own house, apparently it's so selfish of me to kick her out when no one is using the place. I'm astonished. Am I the asshole? Edit to add info. Thank you all for your replies. I'm answering some questions. My niece and I had an agreement that she was living in my house just while she attended college. No more. She had to take an extra course and thus she graduated just a month ago or so. So it hasn't been long. And I didn't want to kick her out as soon as she was done. She's family and I was okay with letting her stay a bit more. We didn't have anything in writing about our first deal, other than a stupid WhatsApp convo. Because I trusted her and my sister, I thought I was being the good and nice aunt by letting her live rent-free already. I did move to another city, but it's not permanent. I intend to move back to my place in a couple of years after I'm done with a project in my current city. So I need that house. The nursery is now where my studio was. They painted the room, changed the floor to a carpeted one and moved my furniture out. My stuff is conveniently being occupied by my sister in her house now. In paper I own my side of the house completely. Precisely to avoid issues, we have a contract that stipulates the size of the property that's completely mine and the part that belongs to just my sister. Finally, we don't live in the US. I hope this info is helpful to those who had some questions. NTA. I would have said $H, but she literally moved in someone and changed a room with no warning. For family unity sake, talk to her and tell her you're still mad at her taking advantage of your kindness but don't want her homeless. She can pay a fair market rent, or less if you feel generous, and have a lease like a tenant. If she wanted to be treated like family and not a tenant, she would have asked on both those accounts I mentioned, so she can be tenant. NTA. It's your house. It belongs to you and no one else has any right to it. If your niece has any sense at all, The right way to do is to approach you and ask you, and she should be the one who offer to pay rent. Since she is about to make your side into her home and the circumstances has changed already. Regardless of what, that place belongs to you, and it's not selfish if you don't want others to use it. Rather, it is selfish of the niece and even your sis to assume things for you and take things for granted. She is already lucky to have a place to stay for free for 4 years. Now she needs to pay for her own place. Stand firm with your decision. NTA. Pregnant or not, she's taking advantage of you. If you feel like being kind, you can approach her with a rental proposition before the 2 months are up and let them stay. Or you can ask your sister to buy out your half of the house and do whatever she likes with it. Honestly, that would be my personal choice. You don't need to own that house anymore since you've moved on in life. So let them buy it from you and call it a day. Everyone would win then. You'd be free of the responsibility, and free of the family giving you grief for giving them the boot. Info. What kind of alterations are we talking about here? Like painting or knocking down walls? Info. Did you and your niece have a written agreement prior to her moving in? Did she pay for utilities? What was the verbal when she did move in? NTA. She should have asked because it's yours and it was not your agreement. She's acting entitled to it and she's not. Info. And this is important. How is the title of this property distributed? Considering she has lived there for 4 years, she would already qualify for squatter's rights even without paying rent, so you could be in serious legal trouble, and especially if you are not actually part owner of the property. I can understand somewhat your emotions, but please don't do anything rash without research. I get the feeling that this comes from her mom and she let herself be dragged into it. Of course, Sai isn't without blame as she is a grown-up, but your sister must have known everything. 2. NTA. You don't have to do that, but if I were you, I would do the following. For young parents, living so close to the grandmother of the baby can be an absolute blessing. Also, if you go through with it, your sister might be an absolute dong to every person you might rent to, and you may destroy that relationship completely. Wait till the anger clears and sit her down. Tell her again why you got so mad that she never even mentioned her BF, that she secretly changed the room, etc. Explain to her that it still is your house and you were hurt by those action. Calm. Also that she can't expect to live rent-free for the rest of her life in your house. Offer her to stay and pay rent, or for her or your sister to buy the house. Info. Was there any conversation after college of her moving out, or did you assume she'd have moved out after she graduated? How were you not aware that she stayed after college? Not blaming you at all. Just genuinely curious. Also, how did your niece alter the room? NTA. It's your house. The agreement was until she finished college. Kid or not, springing this on you is unfair. If you don't plan on living there again, you can ask them to buy you out for market value or ask for market value rent. If you had planned on moving back and they gotta go, it's your place, but they don't get to live there for free. Considering they ignored your boundaries and are entitled enough to demand to live there, it's a disaster waiting to happen either way. Evicting them would be best. Get the drama over with. Possibly offer them help with finding a new place within reason. Your mom and sister suck for siding with your niece while they know the agreement and that it's your place. NTA. But you need to resolve this. Options include kicking them out and start renting out the place, they start paying rent, and you establish a lease agreement. Your sister buy you out and take ownership of the property. They and your sister won't like any of these options, and will want to pay you nothing, but continue to live there permanently. To be clear, they now view your home as theirs, and they won't want to acknowledge otherwise. You need to look at your legal options and get legal advice. Getting them to buy you out would be the best option, as they always want to use you otherwise. You were too generous, and now they feel entitled. Honestly, after reading some of the comments, I would lawyer up and sell your half to your sister. Let her deal with it or put it up for sale. Let your niece buy it like the adult she claims to be, because now she's old enough to be married, with a kid on the way. And WTF is going on with your sister not saying anything to you about her? NTA up, but seriously, sell your half. They can go and live on the mom's side of the house. If she's been there for 4 years, why did you assume she was moving out if she hadn't mentioned moving out? She lived here for 4 years and had the audacity to let her boyfriend move in with her? Yes, of course she did. She views it as her apartment, and in a non-legal sense, it is. She's lived there for 4 years, rent-free, with apparently no discussion of her moving out. What did you expect? She's pregnant and, like most women, making preparations for the baby, hence turning a room into a nursery. This is not unreasonable. Leaning towards YTA. It would have been best for there to be better communication, for her to inform you of her intentions. But this arrangement is your fault, allowing family to mooch, not having rules in place, and clearly not discussing it falls on you. It's not like she tore down walls. It's not like she moved in a group of circus clowns. She moved in her significant other and redid a room. You have right to taking your place back, but getting pissed and kicking her out seems like an overreaction. Because what I just read was, my niece has been living in my house for 4 years and I never expected her lifestyle to ever change. Instead of reacting like an adult and having a conversation with her, I just blew up. You are way overreacting here. Altered one of the rooms. That usually just means painting walls and adding furniture. That is not irreversible damage. She's also not entitled to live in your house if you do not want her to. But have you ever told her, once you get married or have a baby, you are out? Or did you just expect that after 4 years she would leave her extremely comfortable living arrangement by using her psychic powers to know exactly what you were thinking? Why not just sell your half? You haven't been using it at all. YTA for reacting and not discussing. It sounds like you didn't set boundaries and guidelines for how long she could live there, how she should treat the house, etc. She lived there 4 years. Was it understood that she should then move out? Sounds like you don't plan to move back in. Sit down, talk about rent, be calm and discuss, and don't react. Even if she was living there rent-free, you should have had her sign a lease. That way there would be no questions about the terms. She never should have made changes to the house without your permission. Your sister had no right to authorize those changes without consulting you. On that last point, I assume both you and she are on the deed. As for you, you let your emotions make the choices for you. It's not too late to change your mind. If you do, you need to treat this situation like a landlord. NTA. Never give anything away for free or stuff like this happens.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.